Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I hope everyone is all right, and I thank you for being here, for listening to me, to my sometimes odd rants, I know, and my broken English sometimes, but you see, sometimes it's a bit hard because if I'm not tired, it's easy. But sometimes I'm a bit tired, and I'm not doing this as a full-time occupation. I'm just doing this because I want to, because I think we all have a moral obligation to speak out, and because also I think it's very important to listen to many opinions, not to get lost in them, not to lose our own stance and our own opinions, because we should not let ourselves be driven by others. But sorry, let me close the door. My cat has arrived. She owns me. But continue on. But it is important for us to understand other people, to listen to them, to really, really hear what they are saying. And as you recall, I made this video is the second one I'm doing about Crimea. And in this video, I will be showing a news piece from the Kyiv Independent. First of all, I will like to ask you to give them the view, to subscribe to them and help them if you can. And to understand this, uh, take all that you read with a pinch of salt, but really listen to it and then do what I do. Go and see in other new venues, in other news channels, whatever. Go and see what they are saying, but don't get yourself lost in those type of channels where people have a predetermined narrative and they use the facts to simply justify them. No, when you go to listen to them, you listen to them, but you see the facts. The facts is what is interesting, because you can say, for example, that a yellow car has hit a red car. There goes the cat again. You can say, for example, that a yellow car has hit a red car. Now, that is a fact. You visually see a yellow car hitting a red car. Now, then you have those that say the yellow card was performed an unjustified attack on the red card. That is an opinion. Or you can say that the red card was only standing its ground against the yellow card autocracy. It was defending itself. Or you can say for example, the red cards they are always bad, or yellow cards they are always bad, or those yellow and red cards they argue amongst themselves, they are constantly hitting themselves, and they are to blame for their own problems. These are all opinions. Can you understand what I'm trying to explain to you? But the fact is that a yellow card hit a red card. Now you see multiple ideas. You can see multiple perspectives in order to understand why did that yellow card hit the red card. And perhaps you will find that the yellow card was just a bit distracted and it didn't see the red card and it hit it. You can discover that the yellow card had done it before, or you can discover that in the year before, pardon me, the red card had done the same thing to the yellow card. And this is a scientific approach to a problem. You know, when people talk about, oh, I did my research about it. Really? What can you say about this? Research is not just viewing a couple of videos and opinions. Look, for example, me doing my research. First of all, like I said, I would analyze multiple papers, multiple analysis about the historical precedents of the relationship between the red card and the yellow card. Sorry, allergies. That is the first thing I would do. Secondly, excuse me for a minute. Secondly, I would, for example, you know, view what has happened between those two cars. You know? Then I would see the history of each of the cars. And all of this process that I'm doing, I would watch it from more than one source. And then when I reach my conclusion, I would enumerate, you know, all of the sources that I use so that someone else that came after me would be able to go and see those same sources and perhaps detect errors in my judgment, bias in my judgment. Okay. And then I would reach a conclusion that might not be 100%. For example, I could see there is a strong, and this is just an example, okay? There is a strong historical perspective and behavioral perspective that yellow cards simply do not like for this and that reason red cards. Or I could say red cards are always trying to victimize themselves before yellow cards. Okay? Or I can say the reaction of the yellow card was just a reaction to a previous action by the red card. I could reach a million ideas, but this is how you do it. And when it comes to news, I usually tell people this: look, grab a, grab an empty sheet of paper, divide it in two, and then, for example, put the two positions that you think that are more important in each side of that paper sheet, and then go watch some news, go find some information, and then write down elements that support the position of each of those idea of each of those positions, and then cross-check them. No, sorry for this. I haven't got a handkerchief here. And then by doing this, you will be able to have a wider perspective on the subject that you are analyzing. And this is very simple. And this is something that is taught in school books. When you read what the scientific method is, and I strongly advise you to do it, you cannot read it from a perspective of an absolute truth. This is the first one. You have to put it in context and then apply it. Apply it. The scientific method is not a rigid system. It's a system that allows you to apply it to the case, the situation, whatever you want to call it, that you are doing. If we are doing, for example, a chemical analysis, it's pretty simple. You have chemical parameters of components, of temperatures, of whatever, and if they fall into a predetermined level, then you know this is what is happening, or this is what it is. Now, anyone, any person applying a scientific method to detect the chemical composition of water, it's a very rigid system. But when we are talking about human science, humans are inherent, humans are chaotic because human emotions, they have uh, basic templates. A person that is hit, that person will usually run, cower, hit back, or attack back with even more strength. Have you seen the spectrum of behaviors that are possible? And this is the same thing with facts. You have to know the facts to make an appreciation of them. You cannot go into a story and then simply expect the facts to suit your narrative because you will always reach wrong, wrong, or inaccurate ideas. Now, before I lost myself in the rant, This is a piece that I found in the Kyiv Independent, and this speaks about something that I saw here. Because just to tell you that this is not a sole opinion of Ukraine, this is an opinion of a crushing majority of the EU Parliament. For example, here in Portugal, it's the opinion of the crushing majority of our national parliament, and that is this. Let me just pass here. Here we go. Again, here you are, the Kyiv Independent. Here is their link. You can go there and read the piece for yourself. The Kyiv Independent. This is dated April the 25, Friday, meaning today. The EU will never recognize Crimea as Russian, Kallas says. Now, who is Miss Kallas? Mrs. Kallas, I think. Kaja Kallas, EU High Representative, and this is in the Convention Center in Luxembourg. This was in April, the 14th of April. Now, the European Union will never recognize the Russian-occupied Crimea Peninsula as legally Russian. The Mrs. Kallas said. Okay, this comes in through response to the reports that the recognition of the Crimea as a Russian territory is being considered on the part of the US-backed proposal to end the war. And as we know by this time, Mr. Trump has walked off the negotiations as a little coward that he is, because he has understood he has no power to impose absolutely nothing. This is the EU's position. Crimea is Ukraine, Kallas told the AFP. It means a lot for the ones who are occupied than to others that others don't recognize it as Russian. So this is very important, this position, to the Ukrainians, to the Tatars, to the Crimeans. This is the known story that we know about the little green man, that Russia illegally annexed Crimea in 2014. Now, Russia basically moved in troops and said that there was a referendum and then made a referendum to justify the seizure of the territory. This is important too. If we recognize this, Russia clearly gets what they want. Kallas said Washington should instead look to mount pressure on Moscow rather than ceding to Kremlin demands. And as we can see, Mr. Trump has been doing exactly that. They have tools and they have not used them. We also know that. If they are now walking away without using the tools that they actually had in their hands, then my big question mark is why? Why aren't they using the tools to really end this war? I won't continue on this subject. I will just focus on me and tell you this. Now, what I am going to say is my own personal opinion. Okay? Remember this. This is my own personal opinion. Number one, Mr. Trump knows he has no leverage, no power to impose whatever he wants to impose to Russia unless he makes concessions on his own narrative that he is using to keep himself in power in the US. Okay? Number two, he knows Ukraine and Europe will not accept this. Number three, it is my firm belief that if not totally in the pocket of Mr. Putin, Mr. Trump has people near him that are totally in the pocket of Mr. Putin. And why do I say this? Because every time I hear a person in charge in the current US government talking about Ukraine, this is what they say. We want peace. We need to make peace with Russia. They should just give in to Russia, let them have the territories that we know that are historical theirs. Really. So why doesn't Mexico, for example, occupy California? It's historically theirs. Why isn't Texas an independent republic? Why does not Canada occupy the northern lands? Why doesn't the US return Alaska to Russia? Why does not Canada, for example, occupy Alaska since it has been a part of their area, geographically wise, since ever? Hmm? Why not? Why does not Poland occupy the lands that the Soviet Union gave them? Sorry, why does not Poland reoccupies the areas that are now Belarus and Russia in the east that are historically a part of their territory and returns the lands that were historically a part of Germany? Do you understand the implications of all this shit? Number one, as I said in a video that I made about the Tatars, Crimea was never Russian. It was occupied by Russia. Crimea has always been a part of the historical settings, let's call it like this, of the Ukrainian area. That was there before Russia was anything else than dirty peasants selling carcasses and skins and honey and wax and whatever in the frozen banks of the rivers in Moscow. Moscow was a shepherd's land. Then it occupied Novgorod. Then it occupied a lot of land. And some guy, I think it was Ivan the Terrible, called himself the Tsar of all Russias, as a justification for it. This does not mean that people are not ethnically related. Of course they are. You come here to Portugal and Spain have a lot of ethnic connections, at least to some Spanish. But this is not a justification. In this position of the European Union, more than a political position, it's an historical accurate position. And it fully goes within the spirit of peace that is the one of the basic pillars of Europe, of the European Union. The European Union is designed to have peace inside of Europe. And right now, with all of this situation, it's also becoming a way of protecting Europe from the USA, protecting Europe from any outside threats. Because if you don't know this, I will tell you this. Technically, legally, Russia could apply to be a part of the European Union. Russia could become a democracy right now. It could ask for the membership to be considered, and if they filled for example, right now the Copenhagen criteria, they could ask to join the European Union because they are Europeans, just like Georgia, just like Armenia, just like Turkey, just like an entire monopoly of countries. But of course, we know that Russia joining anything except a comic act in the Siberia plains. No, we know what Russia is. We know. So again, I say this, and I ask any YouTuber that watches this video to do pieces on this, to insist in this part, to insist that it's morally wrong to recognize this. And I know the narratives. I was fooled by them too, but I was fooled by the old story that Nikita Khrushchev gave Ukraine to the Republic of Ukraine while it was a part of the Soviet Union. But this is only the mending of another historical error, because Crimea was never a part of Russia. Crimea was a part of Ukraine, of at least of the Ukrainian area. Portuguese sailors would go to that area to sell olive oil, wine, and oranges and exchange it for grain and for other goods, for leather, for honey, for wax, for a lot of things, So much so that even to this day in Turkey, Portugal means orange. So you want proof? There you go. And they talked about it. They explained what happened there. And you have to remember, like I said in another video, that the Tatars are Muslims and that they were the majority up until 1783 and after the Soviet deportations later on in Crimea. And they now account about 15% of the population. But they are an integral part of Ukraine's history, of their country, their national identity. And you cannot get a piece of land and give it away. I won't go into other cases here in Europe that happen much because of the Americans and of the weak European leadership. But I say that, and I know, what some people are talking about. You are thinking about Kosovo, you are thinking about Bosnia and Herzegovina, you are thinking about a lot of things that I also think and that I also question. Okay, I question it. Don't make no doubts about it. I try to see both positions, but I also question. But at least not in this video, I will not talk about it because right now we are talking about what is important, and that is that no one, no one should recognize any part of Ukraine being a part of Russia. Because, first of all, it's legally, it's legally wrong, it's morally wrong, it's ethically wrong, and it's giving in to a murderer and a rapist and a destroyer. That is what they are. This is what they are doing. They are raping, they are killing, they are kidnapping children, they are looting everything they can, they are burning the land, because they are unable to build anything. They had the Soviet Union and they let it rot because after a while there was absolutely nothing to do. And if you think the USA was a part of the fall of the Soviet Union, of course it was. It was military pressure, of course, political pressure, yes, of course it was. But they rotted from the inside, and they are still rotting. Is there any hope for them? Well, I certainly hope so, because personally, being honest, I won't say honest to God, but because some of you don't believe, but honestly, I have no ill will towards the Russian people. If you are Russian, if you are listening to me, my friend, no. I wish you no harm. I don't wish you to be killed, to be raped, to be murdered, whatever. You understand what I'm trying to say? I have no ill will towards you. When you hear me speak about Russia this or Russia that, I'm addressing the politics. I'm not addressing the people. Even if some people are bastards. Okay? But what you have to understand is this: we cannot recognize illegal takeovers of land. We cannot, because it opens a Pandora box. It breaks uh, it breaks a precedent. You cannot do this. You cannot do this. Suppose that in 50 years time a dictatorship rises up in Germany and suddenly they decide that half of Poland is theirs and they start a war. Or that Russia continues with this stance and invades the Baltics, invades Poland, invades whatever the fuck they want to invade, because they want to invade everything. Good thing they are killing themselves off in Ukraine, so they will have to wait at least 100 years to do anything about it. You know, we cannot sing solely of the present. We have to sing in the future, in what will be. And no one is thinking about it. People are taking decisions like, oh, we need to end the war, we need to end the war, we need to. Yes, we need to end the war. Yes. People are dying in Ukraine. Civilians are dying in Ukraine. And I have an opinion that is a very controversial one, but we should put boots on the ground, at least in East Ukraine. I'm not saying to send in European troops into the battlefield. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, for example, to install defense systems in all of West Ukraine and move in troops and put them there so that Putin sees them. Okay? From Finland to the Ukraine. Set up a military operation. Even if we pay more taxes for it. And if they threaten us with nuclear weapons, we threaten back. Let's see who has the bigger. Let's go on a pissing contest. And let's see who can take the heat. Not Russia. Russia is already burning. And you Russians that are listening to me, you know it. You know it much better than I do. You know what is happening. You are not fools. And I can even understand that you are unable to do something about it because you are afraid, because you are scared, because you feel powerless. I understand that. But you know, what can you do? I don't know. Whenever you get to Ukraine, surrender yourselves. Do it in mass. I think some of you are already doing it. Do it. You are not being cowards. You are not being cowards. You are being men. A man that recognizes that the cause he is fighting for is not ethically correct. He can call himself a man. Being a man does not mean having a beard and what and a cock. Doesn't mean that. It means an entire set of attributes of us as protectors, as defenders of the group, and as a part of the group, with all its consequences. Be that man. Don't be a coward. Don't be a fucking slave. Sorry for my harsh words. Sorry for my swearing, but sometimes I cannot help it when I get over emotional. I hope you have yourselves a good day or night or evening or whatever. And thank you for listening. Goodbye.